I should probably start with the vacation thing, since that's what broke everything open. My cousin Lysander was planning this big family trip to Cabo. One of those sprawling rental houses with infinity pools and staff, the kind of place where you take those perfectly curated Instagram photos that scream we have money. Everyone was expected to chip in $3,000 to $100 per person, not asked, expected. The family group chat was buzzing with excitement, and Cordelia was already planning matching outfits. Uncle Maximilian was researching the best restaurants. My sister Persephone was shopping for new swimwear online, sending screenshots to everyone. I stared at that number for 3 days, $3,000 to $100. That was more than half my monthly take-home pay after taxes. I was 26, working as a social worker in downtown Detroit, living in a studio apartment where the radiator clanged all night, and the upstairs neighbor practiced drums at 2 a.m. I'd been saving for months just to afford new tires for my beat-up Honda, but here's the thing about my family, we don't talk about money struggles. We pretend everyone's doing fine, everyone's keeping up. The Valdres family doesn't have poor relatives, according to family mythology. We're all successful, all thriving, all picture perfect. I crafted my response carefully. Hey everyone, the trip sounds amazing, but I need to sit this one out. My budget's pretty tight right now with student loan payments and some car repairs coming up. Hope you all have an incredible time. I thought that was diplomatic, honest but not oversharing. I didn't mention that I'd been surviving on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for the past 2 weeks because my rent went up and my paycheck didn't. Lysander's response came within minutes. Excuses. You'll never be one of us. I read it 3 times. Sure, I was misunderstanding something. Then Aunt Cordelia chimed in. We raised you better than this, Ophelia. Family comes first. And Minerva added, when I was your age, I would have found a way. There's always a way when family matters. Uncle Maximilian sent a private message. Disappointed in you, kiddo. This isn't about money, it's about priorities. The group chat went quiet after that for about 2 hours. Then they started planning around my absence like I'd never existed. Discussing room arrangements for people instead of 5. Lysander posted links to restaurants for our party of 4. Persephone shared a sunset photo from a previous trip with the caption, can't wait to make new memories with my real family. I turned off my phone and cried in my car during lunch break. Not just because of the money, though that stung, but because of how quickly they decided I wasn't worth including if I couldn't pay to play. 26 years of being the responsible one. The one who showed up for every birthday and holiday. The one who drove 3 hours each way to help move furniture or watch kids when asked. None of that mattered now. My co-worker Zelda found me in the parking lot, tissues in hand. Family drama, she asked. Something like that, the rich kind or the crazy kind. I laughed despite myself. Both, I think. That night, I looked at my family tree ornament hanging on my apartment's tiny Christmas tree. It was this elaborate wooden thing Grandpa Octavius had commissioned years ago, with all our names carved in delicate script. My name was right there between Persephone and Lysander, part of the 3rd-generation branch. I didn't know it then, but it would be the last time I'd see my name on anything family-related for a very long time. The Mexico trip happened without me. They posted constantly. Professional photos by the pool, fancy dinners, sunset cocktails. Every single post felt like a deliberate reminder that I wasn't there, that I wasn't good enough, that my budget made me less than. What really got to me wasn't the exclusion, though. It was the realization that this wasn't new. This was just the first time I'd said no to something they couldn't overlook. The exclusion from Mexico was just the beginning. What followed was a masterclass in family psychological warfare. And I was apparently the target. It started subtle. Group texts about family events would go out to everyone except me. I'd find out about cousin Persephone's promotion party through her Instagram stories, posted while the party was happening. And Cordelia's birthday dinner was a complete surprise to me. Until Lysander posted photos of the whole family around a restaurant table, with an obviously empty chair where I usually sat. Oh, we thought you couldn't afford it anyway, Aunt Minerva said when I called her about it. Didn't want to put you in an awkward position. The gaslighting was incredible. They'd taken my one honest moment about financial struggle and weaponized it into a blanket assumption that I was too poor to participate in anything. Never mind that I'd never missed a family event before Mexico. Never mind that a birthday dinner at Olive Garden was slightly different from a $3,000 to $100 vacation. But the real kicker was Grandpa Octavius's 80th birthday party in November. I found out about it accidentally, 3 days before it happened. Persephone posted a story about getting her dress altered. Mentioning Grandpa's big 8-0 celebration at the country club, I stared at my phone in disbelief. His 80th, the man who'd taught me to play chess, who'd slipped me $20 bills during tough college months, who'd told me repeatedly I was his most sensible grandchild. I called him directly. Grandpa, it's Ophelia. I heard about your birthday party this weekend. Oh, sweetheart. His voice got quiet. I wondered when you'd call. I didn't know about it until today. I figured as much. I kept asking Lysander if you'd our SVPD, and he kept saying you were probably busy with work stuff. My heart sank. Lysander had been managing the guest list, of course. I'm not too busy for your birthday, Grandpa. I wouldn't miss it. I know you wouldn't, dear. That's why I kept asking. I showed up to that party in my best dress, a black number I'd worn to every semi-formal event for the past 3 years. The country club was decorated beautifully, with photos of Grandpa through the decades and white roses everywhere. About 60 people were there, including extended family I barely knew. The seating chart was interesting. There was no place for me at the family table, or any table, actually, and Cordelia fluttered around when she saw me, clearly flustered. Ophelia, what a surprise. We didn't. Lysander said you couldn't make it. Lysander was wrong. She found me a chair at a table with some of Grandpa's elderly neighbors, people who didn't know me, and made polite small talk about the weather. Meanwhile, my immediate family sat together at the head table, laughing and taking photos and acting like everything was normal. During the toast portion, Uncle Maximilian spoke about family loyalty and the young generation stepping up to honor their elders. Lysander talked about the importance of showing up for the people who matter. Persephone shared a sweet story about Grandpa teaching her to drive. Nobody mentioned me, not once, despite the fact that I'd been coming to Sunday dinners at Grandpa's house almost every week since I moved back to Michigan. Despite the fact that I was the one who drove him to his doctor's appointments when nobody else could. Despite the fact that I'd spent countless hours helping him organize his financial paperwork and set up his new smartphone. But here's what they didn't know. During all those Sunday visits, all those long conversations over his terrible instant coffee, Grandpa had been telling me things, important things, about his will, his estate planning, his thoughts on the family dynamics. He was old, not stupid. He saw what was happening. That cousin of yours, he'd said just a few weeks before his party, thinks money makes him important, but character is what lasts. Ophelia, character is what I'm looking for. I smiled politely through the rest of the party, hugged Grandpa goodbye, and drove home wondering how much longer I could keep pretending this dysfunction was normal. How much longer I could keep showing up for people who'd clearly decided I wasn't worth including. The answer came sooner than I expected. Christmas was always a big production in the Valdres family. We did it at Uncle Maximilian's house. This massive colonial with a circular driveway and enough space for our whole extended circus. The tree was always professionally decorated. The gifts were always expensive, and the family photos were always perfectly staged. I almost didn't go. After the birthday party disaster, I was seriously considering spending Christmas alone with Chinese takeout and Netflix. But Grandpa called me personally. You'll be there for Christmas, won't you? Sweetheart, it wouldn't be the same without you. So I went. I bought thoughtful gifts I couldn't afford, wrapped them in matching paper, and showed up with my usual green bean casserole that everyone pretended to love but barely touched. The first red flag was the family tree ornament. Every year, it went on the tree as part of our tradition. This beautiful wooden piece with all our names carved into delicate branches. And Cordelia always made a big ceremony of hanging it. This year, when she pulled it out of its special box, I noticed something different. Where my name used to be, carved between Persephone and Lysander in elegant script, there was now just smooth wood, like I'd never existed. I stared at it. Sure, I was imagining things, but no, everyone else's name was there, even the newest additions, like Uncle Maximilian's girlfriend's kids who'd been in the family for all of 6 months. But Ophelia Valdres had been erased. And Cordelia, I said carefully, what happened to my name on the ornament? She didn't even look at me. Oh, we had it updated. More streamlined now, streamlined. You know how it is, dear. Things change. Nobody else said anything. They all just stood there, watching Aunt Cordelia hang our mutilated family tree on the actual tree, acting like this was completely normal. Like carving someone out of the family record was just part of holiday decorating. The gift exchange was equally brutal. Everyone else got expensive presents. Persephone got a designer purse. Lysander got AirPods Pro. Even the Quasi stepkids got gaming consoles. I got a generic candle from the drugstore, still with the $4.99 sticker on the bottom, but the real gut punch came during family photos. We always took about 1,000,000 pictures on Christmas. Formal ones by the tree, casual ones by the fireplace, candid shots during dinner. It was excessive, but it was tradition. This year, they positioned themselves very carefully to exclude me from the main shots. Ophelia, could you take this one for us? And Cordelia asked, handing me her phone before I could protest. But I want to be in the just a few quick shots, dear. So I stood behind the camera, watching my family pose without me, smiling their perfect smiles, looking like the ideal American family, complete without me. Later that evening, while I was helping clean up in the kitchen, I heard them taking more photos in the living room. Lots of laughing and wait, one more. When I finished loading the dishwasher and went to join them, they were already putting the camera away. All done with pictures, Lysander announced. Got some really great ones this year. I should have known something was up by how smug he looked. The next morning, Christmas morning, I woke up to notifications on my phone, Instagram, Facebook, the family group chat. They'd posted their Christmas photos overnight. Every single photo was beautiful, professional quality, perfect lighting. Everyone looking gorgeous and happy. There was the family round the tree, the family by the fireplace, the family during dinner, the family being a family. And in every single photo where I should have been, in my usual spot between Grandpa and Persephone, there was a smiley face emoji, not photoshopped out, not cropped, replaced with a bright yellow emoji, like I was some kind of joke. The captions were even worse. Christmas magic with my favorite people. Blessed to have such an amazing family. Nothing but love and joy around this fireplace. Dozens of comments poured in from friends and extended family. Beautiful family. You all look so happy. Goals. I sat on my apartment floor in my pajamas, staring at these photos, at this systematic erasure of my existence, at this public humiliation disguised as holiday cheer. I could have screamed. I could have called them all and demanded an explanation. I could have posted angry comments or created a scene. Instead, I screenshot every single photo, saved every caption, documented every comment. Then I turned off my phone and went back to bed. I didn't respond to any of it. Not the photos, not the texts asking if I'd seen them, not the follow-up messages trying to get a reaction. Something in me had finally broken. Or maybe finally healed. Either way, I was done playing their game. The silence after Christmas was deafening, but also liberating. For the first time in years, I wasn't anxiously checking the family group chat or wondering what event I was supposed to attend next. I wasn't walking on eggshells or trying to prove my worth. I was just quiet. My phone still buzzed with notifications, but they weren't directed at me anymore. The family group chat continued without me, planning New Year's Eve parties I wasn't invited to, sharing inside jokes I wasn't part of, making decisions about family matters like I didn't exist. Persephone sent me a few private messages. Are you okay? You're being really weird. Then, Mom says you're probably just going through something. Finally, fine, whatever, your loss. But the person I heard from most was Grandpa. He started calling more often just to chat. Sunday dinners became our regular thing. But now it was clearly intentional on both sides. He never directly mentioned the Christmas photo situation, but he'd make little comments that let me know he'd seen them. People these days and their social media nonsense, he'd mutter while we played chess, taking pictures of fake happiness instead of creating real memories. During one of these visits in February, he brought up something unexpected. Ophelia, I need to ask you about something important. My estate planning. I nearly choked on my coffee. Grandpa, you don't need to. Yes, I do. I'm 80 now, sweetheart. I won't live forever. And I want to make sure things are handled correctly when I'm gone. He pulled out a folder of documents, legal papers, financial statements, property deeds. It was more complex than I'd ever imagined. The thing is, I need an executor. Someone I trust completely. Someone with good judgment who won't let emotions cloud their decisions. My stomach dropped. Have you talked to Uncle Maximilian about this? Or Lysander? He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Maximilian thinks money management means buying the most expensive option, and Lysander, he shook his head. That boy sees dollar signs, not responsibility. What about in Cordelia? Cordelia means well, but she's never made a major decision in her life without asking 3 other people what they think first. He leaned forward across his kitchen table, suddenly serious. I've been watching this family for 80 years, Ophelia. I've seen how people behave when they think nobody's looking. I've seen how they treat the people they think don't matter. My chest tightened. Grandpa, you think I didn't notice that you're the only one who visits without wanting something? You think I don't see how they've been treating you since that ridiculous vacation drama? I looked down at the legal documents spread across the table. I don't understand what you're asking me. I'm asking you to be my executor, to handle my estate when I'm gone. It's a big responsibility, and it won't make you popular with certain family members, but I need someone who'll follow my wishes exactly, not someone who'll try to be fair or keep everyone happy. The weight of what he was saying hit me slowly. Executor of his estate meant making all the final decisions. It meant having access to everything, controlling all distributions, ensuring his will was followed to the letter. How much are we talking about here, Grandpa? He smiled grimly. More than they think. Much more. Over the next hour, he walked me through everything. The house, which was worth far more than anyone realized thanks to the neighborhood's recent gentrification, the investment accounts he'd been quietly building for decades, the life insurance policies, the small rental properties nobody knew about. I've been letting them think I'm just getting by on Social Security and a small pension, he explained. Seems safer that way. People act differently round money. By the time he finished explaining everything, I understood why he was being so careful about choosing an executor. His estate was worth nearly $2 million. I know this is a lot to think about, he said. You don't have to decide right now. But I already knew my answer. After months of being treated like I didn't matter, like I wasn't really part of the family, here was proof that the person who mattered most had been watching everything. I'll do it, I said. If you trust me with this, I'll do it. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I was hoping you'd say that. What I didn't know was that he'd been updating his will throughout our conversation. Not just naming me as executor, but making other changes too. Significant changes that would reshape everything when the time came. One more thing, he said as I was getting ready to leave. This stays between us for now. I don't want money conversations affecting family relationships while I'm still here to enjoy them. I promised to keep it quiet, but I also started paying closer attention to how everyone treated him at family events. Who visited regularly versus who only showed up when it was convenient. Who listened when he talked versus who was just waiting for their turn to speak. The patterns were impossible to ignore once you started looking. Spring passed quietly. I settled into my new normal. Work, weekend visits with Grandpa, the occasional coffee with actual friends who didn't require performance art to maintain relationships. I was sleeping better, eating better, generally feeling like I could breathe again. The family drama continued without me. But now I was watching from the outside instead of being trapped in the middle of it. Persephone got engaged to some guy she'd been dating for 3 months. Lysander started a new business venture that required family investment. Opportunities. Uncle Maximilian bought a boat he couldn't afford but needed for client entertainment. They still posted constantly on social media. Family brunches I wasn't invited to. Impromptu gatherings that somehow everyone else knew about. Inside jokes that got more elaborate and exclusive as time went on. The message was clear. We're having fun without you, and we don't miss you at all, which was fine. Because I was discovering something interesting. I didn't miss them either. In June, Grandpa's health took a sudden turn. What started as a routine doctor's appointment became a hospital stay, which became a series of tests, which became a very serious conversation about treatment options and timelines. Lung cancer. Stage 4, maybe 6 months, if we were lucky. I was the one who drove him to the oncology appointment. I was the one who held his hand while the doctor explained palliative care options. I was the one who helped him understand what comfort measures only actually meant. Should we call the family? I asked as we sat in the hospital parking lot afterward. Both of us too stunned to drive home yet. He was quiet for a long time. Let me think about how I want to handle this. 3 days later, he called a family meeting. Everyone gathered at Uncle Maximilian's house, the same place we'd had that disastrous Christmas. I almost didn't go. I hadn't been in a room with all of them since the emoji photo incident. But Grandpa asked me specifically to be there. I have something important to tell everyone, he announced once we were all settled in the living room. I sat in the back corner, trying to be invisible, and Cordelia was fussing over him, bringing him tea and adjusting cushions. Lysander kept checking his phone. Persephone was showing off her engagement ring to anyone who'd look. I've been diagnosed with lung cancer, Grandpa said simply. The room went dead silent. It's advanced, and I've decided not to pursue aggressive treatment. The doctors think I have about 6 months, and Cordelia started crying immediately. Uncle Maximilian started asking about second opinions and treatment centers. Lysander launched into a story about someone he knew who'd beaten cancer with alternative medicine. Through all of this, Grandpa kept glancing at me. I was the only one who wasn't freaking out, because I'd already been through the shock and denial phase with him earlier that week. I want to spend my remaining time with family, he continued. But I also need to make sure my affairs are in order. That got everyone's attention. Suddenly the room was very focused. I've already updated my will and named an executor. Everything is handled legally. But I wanted you all to know that my decisions were made carefully, with a lot of thought about who has shown up consistently over the years. You could have heard a pin drop. Ophelia has agreed to serve as executor of my estate. The explosion was immediate. Everyone started talking at once, voices getting louder and more indignant. Ophelia and Cordelia looked like she'd been slapped, but she's barely been around lately. This doesn't make sense, Dad, Uncle Maximilian said. Lysander has business experience. I'm the eldest grandchild, Persephone added. Traditionally, Grandpa cut them off, his voice sharp enough to silence the room. The executor is chosen based on trustworthiness and judgment, not birth order or gender, or who talks the loudest. Lysander's face had gone red. She can't even afford a family vacation, and you want her handling financial decisions? That's exactly why I chose her, Grandpa said quietly. She understands the value of money because she's had to earn every dollar herself. The meeting deteriorated. From there, accusations about my manipulating him during his illness, demands to see the actual will, threats about contesting whatever decisions he'd made. Through all of it, I sat quietly in my corner chair, watching the people I'd grown up with reveal exactly who they were when they thought their inheritance was at stake. This is ridiculous, Lysander finally announced. We'll see what lawyers have to say about this. You're welcome to consult lawyers, Grandpa replied. Mine is very good. After everyone left, Grandpa and I sat in the sudden quiet of Uncle Maximilian's living room. Well, he said, that went about as expected. Are you sure about this? I asked. They're never going to forgive me. He reached over and patted my hand. Sweetheart, forgiveness assumes they think they did something wrong. These people don't believe they're capable of making mistakes. That night, I got texts and calls from everyone, some trying to convince me to do the right thing and decline the executor role, others trying to find out exactly what was in the will, a few making vague threats about what would happen if I took advantage of Grandpa's illness. I turned off my phone and went to bed early. 6 months suddenly felt both too long and not nearly long enough. Grandpa died on a Tuesday in late July. Peacefully in his sleep at the hospice facility, I was the one the staff called first. Since I was listed as his primary emergency contact, I was the one who sat with him during his final hours, holding his hand and telling him stories about my job and my tiny apartment and the stray cat I'd been feeding on my fire escape. The funeral was a production. Everyone showed up, including relatives I hadn't seen in years. There were flowers and speeches and a reception afterward where people shared memories and told stories about what a wonderful man he'd been. All true, of course, but I couldn't help noticing who had been sharing those wonderful moments with him recently, versus who was performing grief for an audience. The will reading was scheduled for the following week. Everyone knew I was the executor, but nobody knew the details of the actual bequests. I'd seen the documents, of course, but Grandpa had made me promise not to discuss them with anyone beforehand. Let them wonder, he'd said during one of our last conversations. People's assumptions tell you a lot about their character. The reading was held at the law office downtown. Everyone came, all the aunts and uncles and cousins, plus a few surprised faces who apparently hadn't known they were mentioned in the will. The lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Miss Kellicott, had known Grandpa for decades. She started with the smaller bequests, charitable donations to his favorite organizations, gifts to longtime friends, specific items for various family members, and Cordelia got his collection of vintage postcards. Uncle Maximilian got his tools and workshop equipment. Persephone got his recipe box and some jewelry that had belonged to my grandmother. Then came the big numbers. To my grandson Lysander Valdres, who has always been confident in his business abilities, I leave the sum of $50,000 to invest as he sees fit. Lysander looked pleased but not thrilled. 50,000 was nice, but everyone expected the house and major accounts to be split somehow. To my daughter Cordelia Valdresjen, I leave the sum of $75,000 and my sincere hope that she will use it to travel and see the world she's always talked about visiting. And Cordelia started crying again. To my son Maximilian Valdres, I leave the sum of $100,000 with the suggestion that he use it to pay off the boat loan he thought I didn't know about. Uncle Maximilian's face turned bright red. To my granddaughter Persephone Valdres Morrison, I leave the sum of $50,000 as a wedding gift. And my congratulations on her recent engagement. The room was getting tense. We were up to about $275,000 in bequests, which was more than most people had expected Grandpa to have. But everyone was still waiting for the house, the main accounts, the big money. The remainder of my estate, Ms. Kellicott continued, including my primary residence, all investment accounts, life insurance proceeds, and rental properties, I leave entirely to my granddaughter Ophelia Valdres, who has shown me what family loyalty actually looks like. Dead silence, then chaos. Everyone started talking at once, demanding to know how much the remainder actually was. Ms. Kellicott consulted her paperwork. The remainder of Mr. Valdres's estate is valued at approximately $1.6 million. If you've never seen a room full of people realize they've been calculating percentages wrong, it's quite a sight. They'd been assuming the estate was maybe for $100,000 total, and they'd get equal shares minus a few small gifts. Instead, they'd received what amounted to about 18% of the total, while I'd inherited 82%. This is impossible, Lysander said. He was living in that tiny house, driving that old car. Your grandfather was very good at managing money quietly, Miss Kellicott replied. He preferred people not know the extent of his assets. This has to be undue influence. And Cordelia said, looking directly at me, she was manipulating him. During his illness, Mrs. Chen, the lawyer, said firmly, your father updated his will 2 years ago, long before his cancer diagnosis. Miss Valdres had no knowledge of these provisions until today. That was mostly true. I'd known I was the executor, but Grandpa had never told me the specific dollar amounts or percentages. Uncle Maximilian was doing math on his phone. So she gets the house worth what? $300,000 plus $1.3 million in cash. The house is actually worth approximately $450,000. Given recent neighborhood developments, Miss Kellicott corrected. Plus, yes, approximately $1.1 million in various accounts and assets. I sat there listening to them argue about my inheritance like I wasn't in the room. Like I was a theft victim instead of a beneficiary. Like I'd stolen something that rightfully belonged to them. But here's what they didn't understand, and what I was just beginning to realize. Grandpa hadn't just left me money, he'd left me power. As executor, I controlled how and when everyone else got their bequests. I could expedite the process or slow it down. I could be generous with interpretations or stick strictly to the letter of his wishes. For people who had spent the past year treating me like I didn't exist, they were suddenly very interested in staying on my good side. Ophelia, Lysander said, his voice artificially sweet, I hope you know we're all happy for you. Grandpa clearly saw something special in you. We're family. And Cordelia added quickly, this doesn't change anything between us. Of course we'll contest this, Uncle Maximilian muttered, but quietly enough that he probably thought I couldn't hear. I looked around the room at these people who had erased me from family photos, excluded me from events, and made me feel worthless for months, who were now smiling at me and talking about family bonds and how proud Grandpa would be. Actually, I said, standing up to leave, I think this changes everything. And for the first time in my adult life, I walked out of a family gathering without apologizing for anything.